I never expected to spend my 68th birthday sleeping in an abandoned garage, surrounded by the scent of motor oil and decades of dust. Yet there I was, struggling with an old key in the dark, tears stinging my eyes while my son's cruel words kept replaying in my head. "You're just a useless old woman, Mom. What would you even do with a real inheritance?" Dad knew that. His voice echoed like a punishment I couldn't escape. My hands trembled so badly that it took me several attempts to slide the key into the rusty lock. When I finally managed to push the door open, the hinges groaned, and the beam of my flashlight cut through layers of darkness. That's when I froze. My breath caught in my throat, my heart hammering inside my chest as the light revealed something I never expected. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be what Daniel meant when he left me just a garage in his will. But let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how I ended up homeless on my own birthday, clutching a single suitcase that held the remnants of my 42-year marriage. That day had begun in a small office, me sitting beside my son, Michael, as we waited for the lawyer to read the will. Michael was dressed in his sharp gray suit, every detail of his appearance screaming confidence and success, while I sat in the black dress I had worn only weeks earlier at Daniel's funeral. My heart was heavy, my body still numb with grief. Mr. Klein, the attorney who had guided our family through every legal matter for decades, looked uneasy as he adjusted his glasses and shuffled the papers in front of him. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets much more intense, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Before I begin, he said softly, I want to assure you that this document is completely binding and represents Mr. Harris's exact wishes. His tone should have been a warning, but I was too distracted by my loss to notice. The words that followed blurred together, but a few stood out like daggers. To my son, Michael Harris, I leave our penthouse residence in Los Angeles and my primary investment portfolio. My head tilted slightly, my chest tight, but I kept listening. Then came the afterthought. To my beloved wife, Anna Harris, I leave the property located at 520 Industrial Parkway. The garage and its contents. A garage. After 42 years of marriage, after everything we had built together, my husband left me an old garage. I couldn't comprehend it. My ears rang, my eyes burned, and I didn't even notice Michael's lips curling into a thin smile until he placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. His fingers pressed too hard as he whispered, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll make sure you're taken care of." His voice was smooth, practiced, yet laced with triumph. I couldn't reply. My throat felt tight. Why would Daniel do this? Why a garage? Where was I supposed to live? Those questions clawed at me all afternoon until the truth came crashing down later that evening. When Michael drove me back to what I still thought of as my home, the penthouse Daniel and I had shared for the last 15 years, I barely had time to step through the doorway before Michael set my suitcase down with a cold thud. "I think it would be best if you found somewhere else to stay, Mom," he said, his expression unreadable but his tone sharp. I blinked at him, confused. "What do you mean? This is my home. Daniel and I lived here together. It's mine now," he cut in quickly, his voice calm but rehearsed. "The penthouse is in the will. I already have colleagues coming tomorrow to discuss turning Dad's study into a home office. I need the space." My heart sank. "But where am I supposed to go?" The words slipped out weakly, filled with desperation. He shrugged, as if I were nothing more than an inconvenience. "You can stay with Aunt Claire for a while. Or better yet, you've got that garage Dad left you." His lips twisted into a smirk. "Maybe you can open a mechanic shop at your age." He chuckled cruelly, and in that moment, I felt something inside me break. "Michael, this is my home," I whispered. "Your father and I built this life together. You can't just—" "It's not your home anymore, Mom," he snapped, his patience gone. "It's mine. Dad made that perfectly clear." I staggered back, reaching for the back of a chair to steady myself. "At least give me some time. I can't just leave tonight." That's when he said it, the words that would haunt me for hours as I drove aimlessly through the city. "You're just a useless old woman, Mom. What would you even do with a real inheritance?" Dad knew that. His cruelty pierced deeper than any blade could. I couldn't even argue. I just picked up my suitcase and purse, clutching the small key Mr. Klein had handed me earlier that day. And then, with tears blurring my vision, I walked out of the penthouse for the last time. Hours later, I found myself in the industrial district, staring at the dilapidated garage Daniel had left me. My hands trembled as I slipped the key into the lock and forced the door open. The hinges screamed as if protesting, and my flashlight beam revealed what was hidden inside. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't what I expected. The space wasn't filled with junk or broken machinery. Instead, I saw 3 vehicles covered with fitted cloths, arranged with precision. At the front, something gleamed under the edge of the fabric, a silver grille catching the light. My chest tightened as I pulled the cover back. And there it was. A vintage Aston Martin, shining in the darkness like a forgotten treasure. I stepped closer, my heart racing, my mind spinning with disbelief. "Daniel," I whispered. "What on earth were you hiding from me?" My fingers shook as I brushed the soft cover off the car's surface, the material sliding away slowly, like I was unveiling a secret my husband had carried to his grave. The silver paint gleamed back at me, spotless, untouched by time, as if Daniel himself had polished it just yesterday. My breath hitched in disbelief. I had seen this car before. Not this exact one, but the same model in old James Bond movies that Daniel loved to watch on Sunday afternoons. He'd sit there, eyes shining like a boy, whispering, "One day, I'd love to see one of these in person." Never once did he hint that he had already owned one. I touched the cold metal, and the reflection of my face in the curve of the hood startled me. My eyes were swollen from crying, my hair messy from the wind outside, but for the first time that night, a flicker of something other than grief rose inside me. Confusion, curiosity, maybe even hope. "Daniel, what were you doing?" I whispered into the still air. My voice cracked, the sound swallowed by the silence of the garage. Drawn by an urge I couldn't resist, I moved to the next car, my hand trembling as I pulled at the edge of the cloth. When it slid down, my knees almost buckled. A deep blue Mercedes-Benz 300 SL stood before me, its curves and gull-wing doors glowing beneath the flashlight beam. My throat tightened, and tears blurred my vision again. Even I, someone who knew nothing about luxury cars, understood this was no ordinary vehicle. And then, with breathless hesitation, I pulled the final cover back. A Ferrari, painted the color of rich red wine, glistened under the dim light. A small plaque beside it read 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB4. My heart pounded so loudly I thought I might collapse. For a long moment, I just stood there, surrounded by treasures I couldn't begin to understand. 3 cars, untouched, priceless. My mind raced. Why would Daniel hide this? Why leave it to me? That's when my gaze shifted to the far wall. Taped near the light switch was an envelope, yellowed slightly at the edges, with my name written in Daniel's familiar handwriting. My breath caught. My shaking hand reached out, peeled it free, and for a moment I simply held it against my chest, afraid of what words might lie inside. I finally flipped the switch, and instead of the dim gloom I expected, the room flooded with bright light from modern LED fixtures recessed into the ceiling. My jaw dropped. This wasn't just a garage. The walls were lined with custom storage, climate control units hummed softly, and the floor gleamed with polished epoxy. It was no run-down building. It was a sanctuary, designed with care, precision, and purpose. I sank onto a leather bench, still clutching the envelope. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Inside were several pages, Daniel's handwriting neat and steady. "My dearest Anna," it began. "If you are reading this, it means I am gone, and you've found what I've kept from you. I know you must be confused, even hurt, and I am sorry for the secrecy. Please understand, it was not meant to wound you but to protect what I was building for your future. 6 years ago, when the doctors told me I had heart failure, they gave me 5 years at best. I managed to hold on longer, but I knew I needed to prepare for a time when I would no longer be here to care for you." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I remembered the night he came home from the hospital with a smile too forced to be real, saying, "It's nothing serious, just a little problem with the heart." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But all along he knew the truth. My hands shook harder as I read on. "You're probably wondering about the will, why I left the penthouse to Michael and gave you this garage. Believe me, that choice tore at me. But over the years, I watched our son change. The boy we raised with love and values has hardened into someone who values wealth and appearances over kindness. I feared that if I left everything to both of you, or split it equally, he would control you, dismiss you, and use the assets as leverage. I couldn't risk that." I gasped. dropping the page onto my lap as a sob escaped me. Daniel had seen it too. The way Michael spoke to me when he thought his father wasn't listening, the sharp tone, the dismissive words. I had brushed it off for years, telling myself my son was just busy, just stressed. But Daniel had noticed. He had built an entire plan around protecting me from it. I picked the letter up again, tears dripping onto the paper. Michael has received what he believes is valuable. The penthouse, the visible wealth. But what you're looking at now is the real inheritance. These cars alone are worth millions. Inside the safe, hidden behind the photo of us in Venice, you'll find documents for more. Properties, investments, accounts, all in your name. Enough for you to live freely, independently, without depending on anyone. If Michael proves himself worthy, you may choose to share with him. But if not, then this legacy is yours alone, my love. The letter slipped from my hands as I broke into uncontrollable sobs. My husband had known. He had known exactly what would happen after his death, how Michael would treat me, how quickly he would push me aside. And Daniel had planned for it with a love so deep it crushed my chest. Hours earlier, my son had called me useless, had thrown me out of what I thought was my home. Yet here I was, surrounded by silent treasures and the words of a man who had loved me enough to prepare every detail of my future. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt seen, protected, cherished. But I also felt something else. Anger. Not at Daniel but at my son. At the cruelty in his voice when he told me to leave. At the arrogance in his laugh when he mocked me. He thought I had been left with nothing, but he couldn't have been more wrong. I wiped my tears, clutching Daniel's letter tightly against my chest. I whispered into the stillness. You were right, Daniel. You knew him better than I did. And in that moment, I made a quiet promise. I would not let Michael use me, dismiss me, or break me again. He thought I was a useless old woman. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I sat there on the leather bench, Daniel's letter pressed to my chest, tears running freely down my cheeks. My husband had carried this secret for 6 long years, hiding it not to keep me in the dark, but to protect me. He knew what was coming. He knew our son, Michael, would push me aside, and he built this hidden world so I would never be at anyone's mercy. The thought made me tremble. I stood slowly, my knees weak, and walked across the spotless floor. On the wall hung a photograph of us in Venice, our trip for our 35th anniversary. In that picture, Daniel had his arm around me while a street musician played by the Rialto Bridge. I touched the frame with shaking hands, whispering, I remember. Then I felt behind it, just like the letter had said, and my fingers brushed against a small dial. A safe. My breath caught. I entered our anniversary date, and with a soft click, it opened. Inside was a thick portfolio, neatly stacked documents, and several USB drives with labels written in Daniel's hand. The first page I pulled out made my eyes widen. Complete asset inventory for Anna Harris. My hands shook as I flipped through the portfolio. Property deeds, investment accounts, bonds, even a vineyard in Northern California. My vision blurred as I tried to read the numbers at the bottom of the page. They didn't even feel real. Millions upon millions. It was too much for my mind to grasp. I pressed the papers back into the safe and leaned against the wall, gasping for air. Just hours ago, I had been thrown out like trash by my own son. Now I was standing in the middle of a fortune so carefully hidden that even I, his wife, had no idea it existed. Daniel's words echoed again in my head. Your independence, your freedom. I walked back to the bench and picked up the rest of the letter. I know this is overwhelming, Daniel had written. But please trust me. I couldn't risk Michael manipulating you. This way, you can live your life on your terms, without anyone controlling you. And if our son proves himself kind and responsible, you will be the one to decide whether he shares in this legacy. That choice belongs to you alone. My throat tightened as I read his final words. All my love, now and always, Daniel. I clutched the letter to my heart and whispered, You protected me, even from him. The silence around me was heavy, but for the first time since his death, I didn't feel completely alone. That night, I lay on a leather sofa in the small office attached to the garage. It had a tiny bathroom, a mini fridge stocked with bottled water and granola bars, and even a closet with clothes in my size, tags still attached. Daniel had thought of everything. He knew I might need shelter here, at least for a while. As I tried to sleep, Michael's words cut through my thoughts again. You're just a useless old woman. I stared at the ceiling, tears slipping down the sides of my face. That voice was no longer my son's to me. It was a stranger's. My boy, the child I raised, would never have spoken like that. Somewhere along the way, ambition and greed had turned him into someone I barely recognized. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the high windows of the garage, and I saw the space differently. It wasn't dark or depressing. It was a fortress. A secret world Daniel had built to guard me from the storm he knew was coming. I made myself a small breakfast from the fridge, my hands still shaky but steadier than before. Then I took a deep breath and dialed the number Daniel had written in his letter. Marcus Weatherby. The phone rang only once before a calm, polite British voice answered. Mrs. Harris? I've been expecting your call. Please accept my condolences. Your husband was not just a client to me, but a friend. My throat tightened. Thank you, I managed. I only found the garage last night. I don't know what to do. That's perfectly normal, Marcus said gently. Robert, pardon me, Daniel. Knew you wouldn't discover this until after his passing. He instructed me to help you with anything you need. Would you like me to come to you? Yes, I whispered, almost desperate for someone who understood this secret world Daniel had left me. 2 hours later, I heard a car pull up. A modest sedan parked beside my old Toyota. A distinguished man with silver hair stepped out, dressed in a tweed jacket with leather patches at the elbows. He carried a slim leather portfolio under one arm. When he entered the garage, he paused, looking at me kindly. Mrs. Harris, he said, extending his hand. It's an honor to finally meet you, though I wish the circumstances were happier. I shook his hand, my voice breaking. Please, just call me Anna. He nodded, settling across from me in the office area where we shared coffee from a thermos he had brought. Anna, he said softly, your husband was very deliberate in his planning. He began collecting these cars about 6 years ago. Every purchase was researched for authenticity and long-term value. I frowned. But he never said a word. Why cars? He never seemed that interested. Marcus smiled faintly. He once told me that cars were more than machines. He saw them as art, history, and security all rolled into one. He wanted to leave you something tangible, something beautiful. Not just numbers on a screen. My eyes filled again. That sounded exactly like Daniel. Practical, but thoughtful in ways I hadn't even seen. Marcus opened his portfolio and spread documents on the table. These 3 cars alone are currently worth about $12 million. And their value is only rising. The words barely made sense to me. 12 million? I stared at the gleaming cars through the office window, and my heart pounded. What am I supposed to do with them? I asked, my voice small. Whatever you wish, Marcus replied. You could sell them, you could keep them as investments, or even drive them if you like. But you don't need to rush. Your husband paid for secure maintenance for 5 years. You have time. I lowered my face into my hands and cried softly, overwhelmed. Only last night, I had been homeless, humiliated, abandoned by the person I thought I could always rely on. Now I was being told I was a wealthy woman. But money wasn't the point. What broke me was the truth that Daniel had known. He had seen what Michael was becoming. And instead of ignoring it, he had quietly built this shield of love for me. When Marcus left, promising to return whenever I needed him, I sat alone in the office, staring at Daniel's letter. My chest ached with both grief and gratitude. I whispered into the silence. You knew him better than I did. And you knew me better than I knew myself. For the first time in days, a spark of strength flickered inside me. Michael thought I had nothing. But he was wrong. Very wrong. That night in the garage, I couldn't sleep. The faint hum of the climate control system filled the silence, but my mind was too loud. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face, that smug little smile when he told me, "You're just a useless old woman." The words replayed like a cruel record. I curled up on the leather sofa, Daniel's letter still folded under my pillow like a lifeline. I whispered into the dark. Why, Michael? How could you say that to me? To your own mother. My chest ached. A part of me still longed for the boy he used to be. The boy who used to run into my arms after school, clutching his drawings, so proud to show me his work. When had that boy disappeared? When had greed taken over his heart? By morning, I decided I couldn't let myself drown in sorrow. I walked around the garage, studying details I'd missed the night before. What looked abandoned from outside was really a fortress disguised as ruin. State-of-the-art locks, security cameras, even hidden sprinklers to protect the cars. Daniel had built a secret world, and he'd trusted me to uncover it. I made coffee with the small machine in the office, sat at the table, and slowly began opening the documents from the safe. With each page, my hand shook harder. Apartment buildings in Seattle. A commercial property in Chicago. A vineyard in California. Investments in stocks, bonds, and even private equity. It was overwhelming. My Daniel, my simple, steady Daniel, had become a man I didn't fully know. And then my phone buzzed. Michael. I froze, staring at the glowing screen. My hands itched to reject the call, but something in me forced me to answer. Mom. His voice was sharp, impatient, not worried. Where are you? Aunt Claire said you haven't shown up. Why haven't you called her? I took a slow breath, steadying myself. I found somewhere to stay, Michael. Where? He demanded, irritation dripping through every syllable. You can't just vanish. I need you to pick up the rest of your things from the penthouse. The designers are starting work tomorrow. Everything has to be cleared out. My lips trembled, but I forced my voice calm. So soon? Yes, he snapped. You don't need all that stuff anyway. I've already boxed most of it. Just take what matters. The rest I'll donate. Donate. As if my husband's life, his books, his pens, the sweater I knitted him last winter, were worthless. My eyes burned, but I refused to let him hear my tears. All right, I said quietly. I'll come by in the morning. He exhaled like he was satisfied. Good. Be there before 9. I don't have time to wait. Then the line went dead. I set the phone on the table, my hands trembling. No apology. No concern about where I was sleeping. Just demands. Just control. I pressed Daniel's letter against my chest. He knew. He saw this coming. The next morning, I chose carefully from the closet Daniel had left for me. A navy pantsuit, simple yet elegant, tag still attached. I styled my hair neatly, not for Michael's approval, but for my own dignity. If he wanted to see me as weak, I would not give him that satisfaction. At exactly 8:45, I arrived at the penthouse. My stomach twisted as I stepped through the door. The space already felt different. Emptier, colder. Family photos gone. Decorations stripped. The warmth of our home was being erased piece by piece. Michael stood there, phone in hand, barely looking up. Finally, he muttered. I've boxed everything. Let's make this quick. Designers will be here at 9:30. Good morning to you too, Michael, I said softly, though my voice trembled. He shrugged, leading me to the bedroom. Cardboard boxes were stacked where my side of the bed used to be. I opened one and froze. Inside were Daniel's books, his fountain pens, even the sweater I had given him. I held it to my face, inhaling the faint scent of him, and tears filled my eyes. Can't you hurry up? Michael snapped, pacing. It's just stuff, Mom. You don't even have a place to keep it all. I looked at him, really looked. He was handsome, like his father, but his eyes held no warmth. Only calculation. I have a place, I said firmly. And I'll take my time. He rolled his eyes. Fine. Just be done by 9:30. I have calls. He walked out, leaving me in the room alone. I sank to the floor beside the boxes, my hands clutching Daniel's sweater. Tears fell freely as I whispered, "Oh, Daniel, you knew. You knew what he would become." When I finished sorting, I found Michael in Daniel's study, or what was left of it. His beautiful mahogany desk was gone, replaced by some modern glass thing. My heart ached. "I'm finished," I said from the doorway. Michael glanced up. Indifferent. "Great. Want me to call the doorman to help carry your boxes?" "Yes," I replied softly. Then, after a pause, I added, "I'd like a moment to say goodbye to the place. 15 years deserves that much." Something flickered in his expression. Irritation, maybe guilt, but he nodded. "Fine. Just lock up when you leave." He brushed past me without another word. Alone, I walked through each room, whispering silent farewells. In the closet, behind a pile of old clothes, I found something unexpected. Daniel's leather messenger bag. Inside was another envelope with my name. My breath caught. Another letter. Tears blurred my eyes as I tucked it safely into my purse. My clever husband had left me a backup. Even here. When the doorman helped me load my boxes into the car, I took one last look at the building. The home I thought I had lost everything for. But it was clear now. It had never truly been mine. Not in the way Daniel's secret legacy was. As I drove away, I whispered to myself. He thought he left me with nothing. But Daniel gave me everything. When I reached the garage again, the boxes stacked in the back seat felt heavier than their weight. Each one carried pieces of a life I had once believed was unshakable. Photographs, old recipes, the sweater Daniel wore every winter. I carried them inside slowly, my arms aching, but my heart heavier than my hands. Once everything was in the office, I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, staring at the envelope I had found hidden in Daniel's old messenger bag. For a long time, I couldn't bring myself to open it. What if it was just a note? What if it was something that would break me even more? My fingers hovered over the flap as I whispered, "Daniel, why do you keep speaking to me even from the grave?" Finally, I tore it open. Inside was a short letter, his handwriting just as steady as the first one. "Anna, if you found this, it means you went back to the penthouse. I know you wouldn't have done that unless you had to. I hid this letter because I wanted to give you strength in the hardest moment. When you saw our home stripped away. Remember, Anna, walls and furniture do not make a home. Love does. And I never stopped loving you. Please don't cry over things that can be replaced. Focus on what cannot be lost. Your dignity, your kindness, your strength. Michael may not see it now, but one day he will realize what truly matters. If not, then let him go. My love will always be with you." I pressed the paper to my lips, sobbing quietly. Every word pierced me with both pain and comfort. Daniel knew I would cry over the apartment, over the furniture, over the history we had built inside those walls. And he was right. I had cried. But as I read his words, a strange calm settled inside me. That evening, I sat at the small desk in the garage office and began unpacking my boxes. One by one, I placed our framed photos along the shelf, our wedding picture, Michael as a child, the Venice trip. The garage, though meant to look industrial, began to feel like mine. Daniel had been right. A home wasn't about marble floors or city views. It was about memories, love, and belonging. And strangely, surrounded by the hum of machines and the gleam of vintage cars, I felt safer than I had in years. Still, the pain of Michael's betrayal cut deep. I couldn't stop hearing his voice, sharp and cruel. "You're just a useless old woman." I wanted to scream at him, to demand how he could speak to me like that. But a part of me already knew the answer. Money. Wealth had carved him into someone I didn't recognize. The next morning, Marcus returned, his calm presence filling the office like sunlight breaking through clouds. He brought croissants and coffee, placing them gently on the table. "You look stronger today," he said kindly, noticing the photos I had arranged. "I opened another letter," I whispered. "Daniel left it in the penthouse." Marcus nodded knowingly. "He often spoke of you. He worried about how you'd feel, losing that apartment. But he always said you were stronger than you believed." Tears pricked my eyes again, but this time they weren't just from sadness, they were from a growing determination. "Marcus," I asked, "what happens now? I mean, what am I supposed to do with all of this?" He leaned back thoughtfully. "That depends on you. You could sell everything, retire quietly, and never worry about money again. Or, you could embrace what Daniel left behind. Build something new. Something that honors him." I shook my head slowly. "I'm not a businesswoman. I wouldn't know where to start." He smiled gently. "Anna, you've raised a family, managed a home, stood by a man through every hardship. Don't underestimate yourself. You have more strength than you realize." His words stayed with me long after he left. That night, lying on the sofa, I stared at the ceiling and thought about my future. I could hide here forever, live quietly off Daniel's fortune, and let Michael believe he had won. Or I could step into the world Daniel had built for me, one he trusted me to handle. As I drifted into sleep, I whispered into the darkness. I don't know if I can, Daniel. But I'll try. For you. The following days passed slowly. I spent hours sorting through documents, calling Marcus with questions, learning about accounts and investments I had never imagined owning. Each time I felt overwhelmed, I'd read Daniel's letters again, and the words would calm me. Then, one morning, my phone buzzed again. Michael. I hesitated, my stomach knotting. I almost ignored it, but curiosity gnawed at me. I answered. Mom. His tone was sharp, but underneath, I caught something else. Tension. Where are you living? I need to know. I stayed silent for a moment before replying. I'm fine, Michael. That's all you need to know. He exhaled impatiently. You're being ridiculous. Just tell me. I'll send money for rent if you need it. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Money? After throwing me out of my own home? I don't need your money, I said firmly. I have everything I need. There was silence on the line. Then in a quieter voice he asked, Did Dad leave you anything else? My chest tightened. His question was like a knife twisting in old wounds. He wasn't asking if I was okay. He wasn't asking if I was safe. He wanted to know if there was more inheritance, something he could take. I steadied my voice, forcing calm. Daniel left me exactly what he wanted me to have. Which is what? Michael pressed, his tone sharper now. That's between me and your father, I replied softly but firmly. Before he could argue, I ended the call, my hands shaking as I set the phone down. My heart pounded, but a strange fire lit inside me. For the first time in years, I hadn't caved to him. I hadn't begged, hadn't explained. I had stood my ground. As I stared at the cars lined neatly in the garage, Daniel's words came back to me. Your independence, your freedom. I wiped my tears and whispered, Maybe I am stronger than I thought. The silence after I ended Michael's call felt heavy, almost deafening. I stared at my phone, half expecting it to ring again, but it didn't. Instead, I sat there, trembling, my chest tight, and for the first time in a long while, I realized something important. Michael didn't want me. He didn't want to know if I was safe, if I had eaten, if I was sleeping well. He only wanted to know if I had more to give him. The truth settled inside me like a stone in water. My son, the boy I had carried in my arms, the boy I had sung lullabies to, was gone. What stood in his place was a man shaped by greed, cold ambition, and entitlement. I buried my face in my hands and whispered, Daniel, how did I not see it? How did I not see what he was becoming? My tears dripped through my fingers, hot and bitter. A mother's heart is blind, I thought. I wanted to believe the best in him, even when the worst was right in front of me. That evening, I sat at the desk in the office, the glow of the lamp spilling across Daniel's documents. I traced his handwriting on the margins, little notes he had left to remind himself of details. Every stroke felt like he was speaking to me, steady and certain, even though he was gone. A knock startled me. My head jerked up. No one should know I was here. My heart pounded as I tiptoed to the door, my palms damp with sweat. Who is it? I asked, my voice shaky. It's Marcus, came the calm reply. I exhaled, relieved, and opened the door. He stepped in, carrying a paper bag that smelled of fresh soup and bread. I thought you might not have cooked, he said kindly. My eyes stung. Thank you. I wouldn't have. We sat together at the small table, steam rising from the bowls he poured. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. The warmth of the food filled the quiet. Finally, Marcus looked at me and said softly, Anna, forgive me if this is too personal, but how is your relationship with your son now? I lowered my spoon, my throat tightening. It's gone, I whispered. I don't recognize him anymore. He pushed me out like I was nothing. And when he calls, it isn't to ask how I am. It's only to ask if there's more. More money. More property. More inheritance. Marcus studied me gently, his eyes kind but steady. Daniel knew this would happen. That's why he left everything in your control. Not because he doubted you, but because he trusted you. I shook my head slowly, tears spilling again. I don't feel strong, Marcus. I feel broken. I feel like an old woman sitting in a garage, hiding from her own son. He leaned forward. Anna, strength doesn't mean not crying. It means still standing, even when you want to collapse. You've lost your husband. You've been betrayed by your child. And yet, here you are, sorting through documents, trying to understand what you've been given. That's strength. His words struck something deep in me. For so long, I had measured my worth by the way others treated me, by Daniel's kindness, by Michael's attention. Now I realized that maybe my worth wasn't tied to them at all. Later that night, after Marcus left, I sat alone again in the office. The garage was quiet, the cars gleaming under the lights like silent guardians. I looked at the Ferrari, its red paint catching the glow, and whispered, "What would you have me do, Daniel?" The answer didn't come in words, but in a memory. Daniel's voice, laughing one Sunday afternoon as he polished our old Toyota, saying, "Anna, everything you touch, you make better. Even this old thing looks like new in your hands." Maybe he had believed in me more than I ever believed in myself. The next day, I decided to test my courage. I called Marcus and asked him to meet me again. When he arrived, I gestured toward the cars. What if I don't sell them? What if I restore them? Share them with people? Maybe create something in Daniel's memory. Marcus's face lit up. "Anna, that's a beautiful idea. A private collection. A small museum. Or even charity auctions. There are endless possibilities." The thought scared me, but it also gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks. Purpose. That night, as I closed the garage door and locked it tight, my phone buzzed again. Michael. This time, I didn't hesitate. I answered. "Mom," he said quickly, his voice tight. "We need to talk. I've been thinking. Maybe we should sell Dad's garage. The land alone is worth millions. You can't possibly use it. I'll handle everything for you. Just sign it over." My blood ran cold, but my voice came out steady. "No, Michael." There was a pause, then a sharp laugh. "No. Mom, be serious. You're living in a garage. You're old. You don't know what to do with property like that." I closed my eyes, steadying my breath. "It's mine. And I know exactly what to do with it." His voice turned angry. "You're making a mistake. Dad never meant for you to." I cut him off. "Don't tell me what your father meant. He told me himself. He left me what he wanted me to have. And I won't let you take it away from me." The silence on the other end was heavy, then he hissed, "You'll regret this." The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, the phone trembling in my hand. But instead of fear, a strange calm filled me. For the first time I had stood against him without breaking. I whispered into the quiet, "I'm not useless. Not anymore." That night, after Michael's threatening call, I lay awake on the leather sofa, staring at the ceiling. My heart wouldn't calm down. His words, "You'll regret this," echoed in my mind, twisting into every thought. For years, I had imagined my son as my protector, someone who would step up after Daniel was gone. Instead, he had become the storm I needed protecting from. I turned on my side and clutched Daniel's letter, whispering into the quiet, "You knew, didn't you? You saw it coming." My tears slipped onto the page, staining the ink, but I didn't care. The letter had become my anchor, my reminder that I wasn't as powerless as Michael wanted me to believe. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the high windows of the garage. I forced myself up, made coffee, and walked slowly among the cars. Their polished surfaces reflected me back, but I hardly recognized the woman staring at me. My hair was messy, my eyes tired, but something was different, something steadier. I placed my hand on the Aston Martin's hood and whispered, "He thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'll cave. But Daniel, you trusted me with this. I can't let you down." Later that day, Marcus returned, this time with folders and a laptop. He sat across from me in the office, his calm voice filling the silence. "Anna, I want to show you something," he said, turning the screen toward me. "These are valuations of the cars, updated market reports, and potential buyers. Each one could bring in millions, but selling isn't your only option. There are collectors who'd loan them for exhibitions, museums that would pay to display them, even auctions that fund charities." I stared at the numbers, my heart racing. All this, it feels unreal, Marcus. Just a week ago, I thought I'd be sleeping on a friend's couch. Now you're telling me I'm sitting on a fortune. He smiled kindly. "It is real. And it's yours." The question is, what do you want to do with it? I shook my head, overwhelmed. I don't even know who I am anymore. For so long, I was just Daniel's wife. Then Michael's mother. Now, my voice broke. Now I don't know where I fit. Marcus's eyes softened. Anna, you don't need to fit into anyone's shadow. This is your life now. You get to decide what to do with it. His words echoed in my mind long after he left. That evening, as I unpacked more boxes, I found a small album of Michael's childhood drawings. Stick figures, bright colors, clumsy words. I love you, Mom. My heart cracked. I pressed the pages to my chest, whispering, "Where did that boy go?" The next day, my phone buzzed again. Michael. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mom," he began, his tone forced but smoother than before. "Listen, about last night. I was upset. I didn't mean to sound harsh. But you can't seriously think keeping that garage is a good idea. You can't live there. It's ridiculous. Just sign it over to me, and I'll handle everything. You'll be comfortable, I promise." His sudden sweetness made my stomach twist. I knew that tone. It wasn't love, it was manipulation. "I'm not signing anything," I said calmly. There was a pause. Then his voice hardened. "Why are you being so stubborn? You don't understand how this works. Dad trusted me with real responsibility. He left you a garage because he knew you couldn't manage anything else." My chest burned, but my voice stayed steady. "No, Michael. He left me the garage because he trusted me more than you." The silence on the other end was heavy. Then came a sharp laugh. "You're delusional, Mom. You can't even pay your own bills without help. What are you going to do? Run a business from there? Turn it into some fairy tale museum? Get real." His cruelty stung, but instead of breaking me, it lit a fire inside me. I straightened my back and replied, "Maybe I will. Maybe I'll turn it into something worth more than money. Something your father would be proud of." Michael scoffed. "You'll regret this. Don't come running to me when it all falls apart." He hung up before I could answer. I sat there, gripping the phone, shaking, but not from fear. From anger. From determination. That night, as I walked around the garage, the idea that had started as a whisper in my mind began to take shape. What if I did turn this place into something more? Not just a storage for cars, but a legacy. A way to honor Daniel, to prove I wasn't useless, to remind Michael that value wasn't just about money. I touched each car, running my hand along the polished surfaces. "You're not just machines," I whispered. "You're my strength now. And I'm not letting him take you away." For the first time since Daniel's funeral, I fell asleep with a strange feeling in my chest. Not fear, not grief, but the smallest spark of hope. The following week felt like a test of my strength. Every day I woke up in the garage, brewed myself a cup of coffee, and forced my mind to think of it not as a hiding place, but as a beginning. At first it was hard. The cold metal smell, the humming of machines. It didn't feel like home. But slowly, as I placed Daniel's photographs on the shelves, unpacked books, and draped his sweater over the back of my chair, the space began to carry warmth. But the silence was always broken by Michael's voice in my head. "You're just a useless old woman. You can't do anything without me." Those words haunted me, but they also pushed me. Each time I remembered them, I found myself working harder to prove them wrong. One morning, as I sorted through the portfolio Marcus had left, I noticed something I hadn't before. At the very back was a folder labeled, "Future Project." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were sketches, notes, and estimates written in Daniel's familiar script. It wasn't just about collecting cars. It was a plan. Daniel had wanted to turn the garage into a private showroom, a place where people could visit, learn, and appreciate the art of these machines. He had even scribbled possible names, Harris Legacy Motors, and Anna's Collection. Tears blurred my eyes. He had dreamed of including me in it all along. "Daniel," I whispered, clutching the papers, "you wanted me to carry this on. You trusted me with your dream." That evening, Marcus stopped by again, bringing sandwiches and his calm presence. I showed him the folder with trembling hands. His eyes widened as he read through Daniel's notes. "Anna, do you realize what this means? Your husband didn't just leave you assets. He left you a vision. He wanted you to be part of it. I pressed my hands together, my heart racing. But I don't know anything about running something like this. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Marcus smiled gently. Then start small. A private showing. Invite a few trusted people. Let them see what Daniel left behind. You'll be surprised at how people respond. I hesitated, fear clawing at me. What if I fail? What if Michael was right? His voice softened. Anna, failing doesn't make you useless. It makes you human. But if you don't try, you'll never know what you're capable of. And I think Daniel believed you were capable of far more than you realize. His words sank deep. That night, long after Marcus had left, I sat at the desk with Daniel's notes spread before me. My fingers traced the lines of his sketches, the handwriting that still felt alive. Slowly, I began making a list. People I could call, things I could prepare, steps I could take. For the first time, the fear didn't outweigh the hope. But then, just as I felt a spark of determination, my phone buzzed again. Michael. My stomach clenched. I almost ignored it, but curiosity pushed me to answer. Mom, he said quickly, his voice dripping with false sweetness. How are you? Settling in okay? The sudden change in his tone made my heart ache. He sounded like the boy I used to know, polite, almost caring. But I knew better. I'm fine, I replied carefully. That's good, he continued smoothly. Listen, I was thinking. Maybe I came across too harsh the other day. You know I only want what's best for you. I don't like the idea of you living in some broken garage all alone. It isn't safe. Why don't you just let me take care of it for you? You can move in with me. I'll handle everything. Doesn't that sound easier? I closed my eyes, fighting the ache in my chest. For a moment, I almost wanted to believe him. Almost. But then I remembered his laugh when he called me useless, the way he had shoved me out of the penthouse without a second thought. No, Michael, I said firmly. I'm not giving you the garage. I'm not giving you anything. There was a pause. Then his voice cracked with frustration. Why are you doing this? Do you think Dad loved you more than me? Is that it? You think you deserve all of this? His words cut deep, but I steadied myself. This isn't about love, Michael. It's about trust. And your father trusted me. His tone turned sharp. You're going to regret this. You're old, Mom. You can't handle this on your own. People will take advantage of you. You'll lose everything, and then you'll come crawling back. Before I could respond, he hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, my hands trembling. His voice no longer sounded like my son's. It sounded like a stranger's. A greedy, bitter stranger who couldn't accept that not everything belonged to him. That night, I stood in the middle of the garage, looking around at the gleaming cars, Daniel's notes, and the letter tucked safely in my pocket. He thinks I'll fail, I whispered. But Daniel, I won't. Not for you. Not for me. For the first time, I felt a fire inside me stronger than the fear. Michael could threaten, insult, manipulate, but I had something he didn't. I had Daniel's trust, and I had my own will. And I wasn't going to give either of them up. The day finally came when I knew I couldn't hide anymore. Weeks had passed, and in that time, I had quietly worked with Marcus to prepare Daniel's garage for its first private showing. The floors gleamed like glass, the cars shone under soft lights, and Daniel's sketches and letters were framed along the walls. It wasn't just a showroom. It was a tribute to his vision and love. I wore the same navy suit I had worn to the penthouse weeks earlier, but this time, I didn't feel small or unwanted. I felt steady, strong, alive. As guests began to arrive, collectors, museum curators, even a few journalists Marcus had invited, I welcomed them with trembling hands but a brave smile. They marveled at the cars, asking questions, praising Daniel's eye for history and beauty. And for the first time, I didn't feel like just someone's wife or someone's mother. I felt like Anna, the woman carrying her husband's legacy. But of course, Michael had to appear. He stormed in uninvited, his expensive watch gleaming, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of admiration. What the hell is this? He barked, eyes scanning the room. Mom, what are you doing? You don't know these people. You don't understand this world. You'll embarrass yourself. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. My hands trembled, but I lifted my chin and faced him. Michael, this is my world now. Your father left it to me, and I won't let you belittle me in it. He scoffed, stepping closer. You? You think you can run something like this? You're a joke, Mom. You'll ruin everything Dad built. Just sign it over to me, before you make a fool of yourself. A part of me still ached hearing those words. He was my son. The boy I had loved, the boy I had prayed for, the boy I had sacrificed for. But standing there, I realized something painful and freeing at once. I couldn't save him from what he had become. I looked him in the eye and said calmly, Daniel didn't trust you with this, Michael. He trusted me. Because he saw what you were becoming long before I did. And he wanted to protect me. From you. Gasps rippled through the room. Michael's face turned red, his jaw clenched. That's not true. You're twisting things. Dad loved me. He loved me more than you. Tears filled my eyes, but my voice stayed strong. He loved us both, Michael. But love isn't about money or property. Love is about trust, respect, and kindness. And you've forgotten all of that. He opened his mouth to argue, but I raised a hand. No more. You wanted to throw me out of my home. You called me useless. But look around, Michael. I'm standing here, not because of you, but in spite of you. And I won't let you take this from me. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. For the first time, Michael seemed lost for words. His face twisted with frustration, but he couldn't deny what stood in front of him. The cars, the people, the strength in my voice. Finally, he turned on his heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I stood frozen, my hands trembling, my heart racing. Then, slowly, I realized something. The world didn't end. He had left, and I was still standing. Stronger than before. The guests clapped quietly, some even patting my hand, praising my courage. But their approval didn't matter. What mattered was that for the first time in years, I believed in myself. That night, when the last guest left and the garage was quiet again, I sat at Daniel's desk, his letters spread out before me. I whispered into the silence, I did it, Daniel. I finally stood up. Tears slid down my cheeks, but they weren't the same tears I had cried weeks earlier. These were different. Tears of release, of strength, of hope. I thought of Michael, of the boy he used to be. Maybe one day he would realize what he had lost. Maybe he never would. But I couldn't live my life waiting for him to change. I had to move forward for myself, for Daniel, for the legacy he had trusted me with. As I closed my eyes, I whispered the lesson Daniel had taught me without even speaking. We are not defined by what others leave us, or by the words they throw at us. We are defined by the strength we find within ourselves when the world tries to break us. And with that thought, I finally felt at peace.